My brother destroyed my career prospects by deleting job offers from my email inbox saying his struggling wife needed protection for my success. I'm writing this at almost 1 a.m. because I can't sleep. I, 29F, just found out something that made me question everything I thought I knew about my family. I need to know if I'm overreacting or if what happened is as bad as I think it is. I need to start with some background about my brother Devin, 42M, and me. We grew up in a middle-class household in Portland. Our dad worked construction and our mom did bookkeeping for small businesses. They worked hard to give us a decent life and never played favorites, at least that's what I always thought. Devin and I were always different. I liked drawing and building things with my hands. I spent hours making elaborate structures with whatever materials I could find. He was into basketball and baseball. He joined the debate team and business club in high school. Our parents supported both of us equally, but Devin always seemed bothered when I did well at something. When I got an A on a project, he would mention his A+ in calculus at dinner. When I became treasurer of the art club, he ran for president of 3 different clubs the next semester. I noticed it but never said anything because it seemed petty to bring up. Devin moved to Chicago after college and got into corporate finance. He married Natasha, 39F, about 8 years ago. She works in pharmaceutical sales. They bought a house in a nice suburb, had a daughter 2 years ago, and their social media always showed them at restaurants, on vacations, or at events. They looked like they had everything figured out. Meanwhile, I was in Denver working at a mid-sized architecture firm, living in a small apartment, and spending weekends hiking or working on personal design projects. I liked my life, but seeing their posts sometimes made me wonder if I was falling behind. Last March, my firm had layoffs. They cut 30% of the staff. My supervisor told me my work was good, but they had to let go of the people hired most recently. I had been there for 4 years. I spent my savings trying to stay in Denver, but after 3 months of sending out applications and getting nowhere, I had to give up my apartment. I stayed with friends for a few weeks, but I couldn't keep doing that. In July, I moved back to my parents' house in Portland. I was 29 years old and sleeping in my childhood bedroom. My parents were kind about it. They said I could stay as long as I needed. But I could see the concern on their faces. I applied to everything. Architecture positions, drafting jobs, even retail and coffee shop work. Nothing came through. I got one interview at a local firm in August, but they said they went with someone with more local experience. In late September, I got a call from a prestigious architecture firm in Seattle. They found my portfolio online and wanted to interview me for a project coordinator position. I drove up for the interview on a Wednesday. The meeting lasted almost 2 hours. The hiring manager walked me through their current projects and asked detailed questions about my approach to sustainable design. When I left, she said they would be in touch soon and that she was impressed with my ideas. I waited for a response. 1 week passed, then 2, then 3. I sent a follow-up email after the first week. Nothing. I sent another one after 2 weeks. Still nothing. By the 4th week, I assumed they had hired someone else and just didn't bother to tell me. I stopped checking my email as obsessively. I started applying to administrative assistant positions. Devin and Natasha came to visit on a Sunday in late October. They brought their daughter Rosalind. We had dinner and Natasha talked about how exhausting new motherhood was. She mentioned feeling overwhelmed and not sleeping well. Devin said she had been struggling since Rosalind was born. After dinner, Devin asked to use the family computer in the living room because he wanted to show our parents some recent photos of Rosalind. He said his phone wasn't syncing properly with the cloud. He spent about 20 minutes at the computer while the rest of us were in the kitchen cleaning up. When he left, he forgot to log out of his email. I went to use the computer the next morning to print out some job applications. His email was still open. I was about to close it when I saw a subject line in his sent folder that caught my attention. It said Ari's situation with the Mayor Project. Ari is my nickname. Only family calls me that. My full name is Ariana. I clicked on the email. It was sent to Natasha 3 weeks earlier. The content made my hands shake. Devin had somehow accessed my email account. He had intercepted an offer letter from the Seattle firm. They had offered me the position with a salary of $78K, which was more than I had been making in Denver. The email included details about the project and a request for me to confirm my acceptance within 5 days. Devin had deleted the offer from my inbox. He had also deleted 2 follow-up emails from the firm asking why I hadn't responded. In the email to Natasha, he explained what he had done and said it was necessary because Natasha had been crying about how I was going to move ahead in my career while she was stuck at home with a baby. I sat there staring at the screen. I read the email 3 times. Then I went through his other sent emails and found more. He had been tracking my job search. He mentioned intercepting other potential opportunities, but the Seattle job was the only concrete offer. In one email to Natasha, he wrote that I had always been good at landing on my feet, so this wouldn't really hurt me, but Natasha needed him to protect her right now. I printed everything. Then I took screenshots on my phone as backup. I logged him out and closed the browser. I didn't know what to do immediately. I put the papers in my room and tried to act normal for the rest of the day. My mom asked if I was feeling okay because I barely touched my lunch. I said I might be coming down with something. That evening, I told my parents I needed to talk to them. We sat in the living room. I handed them the printed emails. My dad read them first. His face changed color. He read certain lines out loud to my mom. She started crying before he finished the first page. My dad stood up and started pacing. He asked me how Devin had accessed my email. I realized he must have gotten my password from when I used the Wi-Fi at their house over the summer. I had logged into my email on their home computer once and probably saved the password without thinking about it. My mom called Devin immediately. She told him to come over right now. He said he was busy. She said it wasn't a request. He showed up an hour later without Natasha. My dad was standing by the fireplace holding the papers. My mom was sitting on the couch with red eyes. I was in the armchair. Devin came in asking what the emergency was. My dad asked him if he had hacked into my email and sabotaged my job offer. Devin looked at me, then at the papers in Dad's hand. He said he needed to see what they were talking about. Dad handed him the printouts. Devin read them and his whole posture changed. He said it wasn't hacking, he just used the family computer. He said he did it because Natasha was in a bad place mentally and seeing me succeed would have made her worse. My mom asked how he could justify stealing my future. Devin said he wasn't stealing anything. He said I had always been good at getting back up and finding something else, but Natasha was fragile right now. He said Natasha had been comparing herself to me constantly and it was affecting her mental health. He said he had to choose between his wife's well-being and my temporary setback. My dad told him to get out. Devin said they were overreacting. He said I should understand because I had been struggling too and knew what it was like to feel worthless. That's when my dad actually yelled. He told Devin that what he did might be a crime and that he needed to leave before things got worse. Devin left. He slammed the door hard enough that a picture frame fell off the wall. The next morning, my dad helped me draft an email to the Seattle firm explaining what had happened. I didn't go into all the details, but I said there had been an issue with my email account that prevented me from seeing their offer. I apologized and asked if the position was still available. They responded 2 days later. The position had been filled, but they appreciated my explanation and would keep my information on file for future openings. I couldn't stay in my room after that. I started taking long walks around the neighborhood. My mom tried to talk to me several times, but I didn't have much to say. My dad called Devin multiple times, but he wouldn't answer. A week went by and nobody heard from him or Natasha. Update 1: Devin finally reached out 2 weeks after everything came out. He texted me asking if we could meet for coffee to talk things through. I didn't respond for 2 days. My mom said I should hear him out. My dad said it was up to me, but I shouldn't feel pressured. I eventually agreed because I wanted to understand how he justified what he did. We met at a cafe near my parents' house on a Saturday morning. Devin brought a folder. He sat down across from me and immediately started talking about Natasha's condition. He pulled out brochures about postpartum depression and articles about how it can make women feel inadequate. He said Natasha had been having intrusive thoughts and anxiety since Rosalind was born. He said seeing my career potentially take off was triggering her because she felt like she had given up everything to have a baby while I was free to pursue whatever I wanted. I asked him why he didn't just talk to me about it. He said there wasn't time and that he had to act quickly to protect Natasha. He said my career was more flexible than hers had been because architecture jobs would always be available, but her window for having children was limited. He called my career path a passion project compared to his finance career that actually supported a family. I pointed out that he had stolen a $78,000 job offer from me. He said the number wasn't the point. He said Natasha had been making good money before Rosalind and now she felt dependent on him. He said having me succeed right when she was at her lowest would have pushed her over the edge. He kept saying I was good at bouncing back and that this wouldn't define me, but it might have broken Natasha. I asked him if Natasha knew exactly what he had done. He said she knew he had prevented me from seeing some opportunities but didn't know all the details. He asked me not to tell her the specifics because she was already fragile. He said our parents were blowing this out of proportion and that families should protect each other. I left without finishing my coffee. When I got home, my parents were waiting in the living room. They said they needed to tell me something. My dad explained that Devin had been asking them for years to sell him their lake cabin. The cabin is about 2 hours outside Portland. Our family has owned it for over 30 years. My parents bought it when Devin was in elementary school. We spent summers there. My dad built the deck himself. My mom planted the garden. It was supposed to stay in the family. Devin had been pushing them to sell it to him at below market value. He said it should stay in the family and he could afford to maintain it properly. My parents had always refused because they wanted it to remain a place where everyone could visit, not just Devin's property. My dad said Devin had brought it up at least once a year for the past 5 years and had gotten more insistent over time. My mom said something else. She said she and my dad had been looking at Devin and Natasha's finances as much as they could tell from the outside. The house they bought was expensive. They drove new cars. They were always traveling. My dad worked in construction and knew what things cost. He said the numbers didn't add up with what Devin probably made, even with both their incomes before Natasha stopped working. He thought they might be in debt trying to maintain their lifestyle. Then my parents told me they had made a decision. They were signing the lake cabin over to me as an early inheritance. They had already talked to their lawyer. The paperwork was being drawn up. They said Devin's actions showed he couldn't be trusted with family assets and they wanted to make sure the cabin stayed accessible to everyone. I would own it, but it would remain a family gathering place. They were doing this now instead of waiting because they didn't trust what Devin might do if they passed away and the property went into probate. I asked if they were sure. My dad said he had never been more sure of anything. My mom said they had raised Devin to be better than this and they were ashamed of what he had done. She said they still loved him, but love didn't mean ignoring his actions. The paperwork was finalized 2 weeks later. My parents called Devin and told him about the transfer. He drove over immediately. I was there when he arrived. He came in demanding to know what they were thinking. My dad explained calmly that the cabin was being transferred to me and that I would maintain it as a family property. Devin said they were punishing his daughter for something that wasn't her fault. He said they were choosing me over their granddaughter. My mom told him to stop. She said Rosalind was always welcome at the cabin and this had nothing to do with her. Devin said I had manipulated them into this. He said I was playing the victim to steal what should have been his. My dad told him to leave again. Devin said they would regret this decision. He left and we haven't spoken to him since. I met with the lawyer my parents used to set up the cabin transfer. We added provisions that ensured the property would remain open to family gatherings but that I had final authority over its use and maintenance. The lawyer suggested this to prevent future disputes. The cabin was appraised at around $340,000. I now owned it outright with no mortgage. Update 2: Devin and Natasha hired a lawyer. I received a letter at my parents' house about 3 weeks after the cabin was transferred. The letter claimed I had defamed Devin by telling people he had sabotaged my career. It claimed I had caused intentional emotional distress to Natasha by creating family conflict during her recovery from childbirth. It demanded that I retract any statements I had made about Devin and that my parents reverse the cabin transfer. The letter also suggested that my parents might not have been mentally competent when they made the decision to sign over the property. My dad contacted his friend who is a real estate attorney. The attorney read through Devin's lawyer's letter and wrote a response. The response pointed out that accessing someone's email without permission and deleting their correspondence could be considered a federal crime under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. The response also noted that my parents had been evaluated by their own attorney and found fully competent before the property transfer. The response suggested that continuing with legal threats might not be in Devin's best interest. After that letter was sent, Devin's lawyer went quiet. But something else happened. My Aunt Caroline called my mom. Caroline is my dad's sister. She said she needed to ask about something she had heard. Apparently, Devin had told several family members that I had developed a drug problem in Denver and that was the real reason I lost my job and came home. He said I was unstable and that my parents were enabling me by giving me the cabin. My mom was on the phone for over an hour. She called other relatives. My uncle Robert confirmed he had heard the same story from Devin. My cousin Michelle said Devin had told her I was in denial about my addiction and that the family needed to stage an intervention. None of these relatives had contacted me directly because Devin said I would just lie about it. My parents organized a family meeting at their house on a Sunday. About 15 relatives showed up including Caroline, Robert, and several cousins. My mom explained what had actually happened with my job in Denver and with the Seattle position. She showed people copies of the emails where Devin admitted to intercepting my job offer. She explained about the cabin transfer and why it happened. People were asking questions. Caroline asked to speak with Devin directly. My mom called him on speakerphone with everyone listening. Devin answered. My mom told him the whole family was there and they wanted to hear his side. Devin asked what this was about. My dad said it was about the stories Devin had been telling people about me. There was silence on the line. Then Devin said he had been concerned about my well-being and might have expressed that concern to some people. My uncle Robert asked him directly if he had told people I was using drugs. Devin said he never said I was definitely using drugs, just that he was worried I might be going down that path based on my behavior. Robert asked what behavior. Devin couldn't give specific examples. He said I had seemed off and that he was just being cautious. My Aunt Caroline asked him about the email hacking. Devin said it was more complicated than people were making it sound. Caroline said it sounded pretty simple from where she was sitting. Devin said they didn't understand the pressure he was under with Natasha's condition. Caroline told him that wasn't an excuse. The call ended with Devin hanging up on everyone. After that meeting, most of the extended family stopped speaking to Devin. Some people reached out to me directly to apologize for not asking my side earlier. My cousin Michelle sent me a long message saying she felt stupid for believing Devin without question. Something good happened around the same time. The Seattle architecture firm called me. They said a new project had come up and they remembered my interview. They wanted to know if I was still interested in working with them. They offered me a position as a junior project manager with a salary of $82,000. The role had better benefits than the original offer. I accepted immediately. I gave my parents the news at dinner that night. My mom actually clapped. My dad opened a bottle of wine he had been saving. I was starting in 3 weeks. I would need to find an apartment in Seattle, but I had enough saved from not paying rent at my parents' house to cover first month and deposit. Update 3: I had been in Seattle for about 6 weeks when Natasha contacted me. She sent a text asking if she could meet me in person. She said she would drive up from Chicago. I didn't respond right away. I asked my dad what he thought. He said it was my choice, but he was curious what she wanted. Natasha showed up at a coffee shop near my new apartment on a Saturday afternoon. She looked different than the last time I had seen her. She had lost weight. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She wasn't wearing makeup. She sat down and immediately started talking. She said Devin had lost his job. He had been on probation at his firm for the past 6 months for performance issues. They let him go in January. She said she had also lost her pharmaceutical sales position. She had been let go shortly before Rosalind was born due to company restructuring, and they had been living off Devin's income and credit cards since then. She said they were in significant debt. She said Devin had been hiding the extent of it from her. Natasha said the real reason Devin wanted the cabin was because he had taken out personal loans using his expected inheritance as collateral. He had told the lenders that he would inherit the property when my parents passed away, or that they would transfer it to him soon. When my parents gave it to me instead, Devin's collateral disappeared. The people he borrowed from were now demanding payment. Natasha said some of these lenders were not the kind who took no for an answer. She said she hadn't known about the loans until recently. She said Devin had been taking money from their joint accounts and she assumed it was going toward household expenses. She had only discovered the truth when someone showed up at their house asking for Devin. She said Devin had been gambling online for over 2 years. He had lost more than $60,000. The loans were supposed to cover the gambling debts, but he had just kept gambling. Natasha told me that Devin had been using her postpartum struggles as a cover for his own problems. He had been making her feel inadequate and comparing her to me specifically so that she would feel like she needed him. When she would get upset about my job search or potential success, he would comfort her and reinforce that he was the only one who really understood her. She said she had been so wrapped up in her own problems that she hadn't seen what he was doing. She said she had left Devin. She took Rosalind and moved to her parents' house in Indiana. She was staying there while she figured out her next steps. She said she was getting help for her postpartum issues now that she wasn't living with Devin. She said she wanted to apologize to me for what Devin had done and for not questioning his version of events. She said she had believed him when he said he was protecting her, but now she realized he had been protecting himself. I didn't say much during this conversation. I listened. When she finished, I told her I appreciated her coming to tell me this. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I said I needed time to process everything. She said she understood. She left and I haven't heard from her since. My parents found out about Devin's situation through my Aunt Caroline. Devin had shown up at my parents' house 2 weeks after Natasha met with me. He asked if he could stay with them for a while. My dad said no. Devin broke down and admitted everything about the gambling and the loans. He said he was scared of the people he owed money to. He said he had nowhere else to go. My parents didn't let him stay at the house, but they did help him. They paid for him to enter a treatment program that addresses gambling addiction. They also hired a lawyer to negotiate with his creditors. My dad made it clear this was the last time they would bail him out financially. The treatment program lasted 90 days. Devin completed it last month. I haven't spoken to Devin directly. My mom says he is living in a small apartment in Portland and working at a logistics company making a fraction of what he used to earn. She says he asks about me sometimes. I am not ready to have that conversation yet, and I don't know if I ever will be. I have been working at the Seattle firm for 4 months now. The project I am managing involves designing a community center with sustainable materials and energy-efficient systems. My supervisor has mentioned that they are impressed with my work. I found an apartment with a decent view and close to good hiking trails. I have been going out with some coworkers on weekends. The cabin is still there. I went back for a weekend last month and did some maintenance work on the deck. My parents came up for a day and we had lunch on the porch. We didn't talk about Devin much. My mom mentioned that she hopes he gets better, but she doesn't know if the family will ever be the same. My dad said some things can't be fixed and you just have to accept that and move forward. I am doing that now. Moving forward. The job is good. The city is good. I am rebuilding what Devin tried to take from me. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2: My coworker's wife seduced me during his business trips and I thought we had something special, so I risked everything for a secret relationship until her husband exposed all her lies and I realized I was just another victim of her manipulation. I work at a marketing firm downtown. Been there for about 3 years now. The office has maybe 40 people, so you get to know everyone pretty well. There's this guy Marcus, 32M, who sits 2 desks over from me. We're not best friends or anything, but we chat about sports, grab lunch sometimes, typical coworker stuff. Marcus has been with his wife Sarah, 29F, for about 6 years. They got married 2 years ago. I met her at a few company events, summer barbecue, holiday party, that kind of thing. She always seemed nice enough. Pretty, outgoing, laughs at Marcus's jokes even when they're not that funny. They looked like they had their act together. About 8 months ago, Marcus got promoted to senior account manager. The promotion came with a lot more travel. He started being gone at least 2 weeks every month, sometimes 3. Client meetings in different cities, conferences, that whole deal. Sarah mentioned to me at the holiday party that she was getting used to being alone so much. The thing is, Sarah started showing up at our office more often. She'd bring Marcus lunch when he was in town, or stop by to say hi. Normal wife stuff. But she also started talking to me more. At first it was just small talk while waiting for Marcus to finish a call or wrap up a meeting. Then she started texting me. It started innocent enough. She'd ask if Marcus was having a good day at work, or if he mentioned what time he'd be home. I figured she was just checking in since his schedule got so crazy with the new job. But the text got more personal. She'd complain about being bored at home. She'd mention that Marcus was always tired when he got back from trips and didn't want to do anything fun. She'd ask what I was up to on weekends. I probably should have seen where this was going, but I didn't. I'm 27, been single for about a year after my last relationship ended. I work a lot, don't get out much. Having someone to text with was nice, even if it was my coworker's wife. The texts turned into phone calls. Sarah would call me when Marcus was traveling. She'd say she was lonely and just wanted someone to talk to. We'd end up talking for hours about everything: her job at the dental office, my hobbies, movies we'd seen, places we wanted to travel. She told me things about her marriage that I probably shouldn't have heard. How Marcus had changed since the promotion. How he was always stressed and snappy when he got home. How they barely talked anymore except about bills and schedules. How their physical relationship had basically stopped. I started looking forward to Marcus's trips because it meant Sarah would call. I told myself I was just being a good friend, listening to someone who needed to vent. But somewhere along the way, I started having feelings for her that definitely weren't appropriate. 3 months ago, Sarah asked if I wanted to grab dinner while Marcus was in Chicago for a week. She said she was tired of eating alone and all her girlfriends were busy with their own families. I said yes. We went to this Italian place downtown. The conversation flowed like it always did. We talked about work, about movies, about random stuff. But there was something different about seeing her in person like that, just the two of us. The way she laughed at my jokes. How she kept touching my arm when she talked. How she looked at me. After dinner, we walked around downtown for a while. It was one of those perfect spring evenings where the weather is just right. We ended up sitting on a bench by the river. Sarah started talking about how she felt like she was invisible in her own marriage. How Marcus barely noticed her anymore. Then she kissed me. I should have stopped it right there. Should have pulled back and told her this was wrong. But I didn't. I kissed her back. We ended up at her house. Marcus wasn't supposed to be back for 3 days. We spent the night together. I woke up the next morning knowing I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. Sarah made coffee and acted like nothing unusual had happened. She talked about her plans for the day, asked if I wanted to meet up again that evening. That started the most complicated 3 months of my life. Every time Marcus traveled, Sarah and I would spend time together. Sometimes we'd go out to dinner or see a movie. Sometimes we'd just stay at her place and talk. And yes, we slept together regularly. I kept telling myself that Sarah and Marcus were having problems anyway. That maybe they were headed for divorce regardless of what I did. That I was just providing comfort to someone who was lonely and unhappy. But I also started noticing things at work. How Marcus would mention missing Sarah when he was traveling. How he'd bring her flowers sometimes just because. How he'd talk about planning a vacation for their anniversary. From where I sat, Marcus seemed like he was trying to make his marriage work. He was just caught up in the demands of his new job and didn't realize how much Sarah was struggling with his absence. Sarah had a different version of events. She said Marcus had become distant and cold. That he barely touched her anymore. That when she tried to talk to him about their problems, he'd brush her off or say he was too tired to deal with relationship drama. I didn't know what to believe. All I knew was that I was sleeping with my coworker's wife and lying to both of them about it. The guilt started eating at me. I'd sit at my desk listening to Marcus talk about his weekend plans with Sarah, knowing I had been with her just days before. I'd watch him show pictures of their trip to his parents' house, remembering how Sarah had complained to me about how boring the visit was. 2 weeks ago, everything changed. Marcus came back from a trip to Seattle earlier than expected. He'd finished his meetings ahead of schedule and decided to surprise Sarah. He found us together at their house. I was in their kitchen making coffee while Sarah was getting dressed upstairs. Marcus walked in through the garage door and saw me standing there in yesterday's clothes at 7 in the morning. The look on his face went from confusion to understanding to rage in about 3 seconds. He started yelling, asking what the hell I was doing there. Sarah came running downstairs and the situation became clear to everyone. Marcus told me to get out. He said if he ever saw me again, he'd make sure I never worked in this city again. He threw my shoes at me and slammed the door. I sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to figure out what to do next. I couldn't go home because I knew Sarah would try to call me. I couldn't go to work because I couldn't face Marcus. I ended up driving to my brother's house across town. Sarah started calling and texting immediately. She said Marcus had kicked her out and she was staying at her sister's place. She said she wanted to leave him anyway and this just made the decision easier. She asked if we could be together for real now. I realized I didn't want that. The thrill of sneaking around was gone, and without it, I could see the situation clearly. I had helped destroy a marriage. I had betrayed someone who trusted me. I had let my loneliness and selfishness hurt people who didn't deserve it. I told Sarah I needed space to think. She didn't take that well. She said I was abandoning her when she needed me most. She said she had given up her marriage for me. I haven't been to work in 2 weeks. I called in sick the first few days, then took vacation time. My boss knows something is wrong but hasn't pressed for details yet. I can't keep avoiding this forever. Sarah has been staying with her sister but keeps texting me. She wants to meet up and talk. She says we can figure this out together. She says Marcus was a terrible husband anyway and she's better off without him. Marcus hasn't contacted me directly, but I heard through office gossip that he's been telling people I'm not trustworthy. He hasn't given details, but people are starting to ask questions. I keep thinking about what I should do next. I can't undo what happened, but I don't know how to move forward. I can't face Marcus at work every day knowing what I did. But I also can't just quit my job and run away. Part of me wonders if I should try to talk to Marcus and apologize. Try to explain that it wasn't planned, that I never meant for things to go so far. But I don't think he wants to hear from me, and I don't blame him. Another part of me thinks I should just accept that Sarah and I are together now and try to make it work. But every time I think about building a relationship on the foundation of destroying someone else's marriage, I feel sick. I've been staying at my brother's place, but I can't crash on his couch forever. I need to make some decisions about my job, my living situation, my relationship with Sarah. But every option feels wrong. The worst part is that I can't talk to anyone about this. My family would be horrified. Most of my friends are either coworkers or people I know through work. I've never been in a situation like this before. I know I messed up. I know I should have stopped things before they went too far. But I can't change what happened, and I don't know how to fix it. Has anyone else been in a situation like this? How did you handle it? I'm not looking for people to tell me what a terrible person I am, I already know that. I just need advice on how to move forward from here. Update 1: I went back to work last Monday. Had to face the music eventually. My boss called me into his office first thing and asked what was going on. I told him I had been dealing with some personal issues but they were resolved now. He didn't buy it. Said there had been complaints about my professionalism and that he needed to know if there was something affecting my work relationships. I could tell Marcus had said something, but I didn't know how much. The office atmosphere was weird. People would stop talking when I walked by. I caught a few coworkers staring at me during meetings. Marcus and I didn't speak at all the first week. He'd leave the room if I came in, or find reasons to work somewhere else if I was around. Sarah kept texting me. She was still staying with her sister but said she needed to find her own place soon. She wanted to know if we could get an apartment together. I told her I wasn't ready for that. She got angry and said I was being selfish and cowardly. Then she started showing up at my apartment. I had moved back to my own place after staying with my brother for 2 weeks. She'd be waiting by my car when I got home from work, or sitting on my front steps in the morning. She said she had left her husband for me and I owed her a real relationship. She said she couldn't believe I was treating her like a dirty secret after everything we'd been through. She said Marcus had been cold and distant for months and she deserved better. I told her I needed time to figure things out. That jumping into a relationship right after destroying her marriage wasn't smart for either of us. She said time wouldn't change the fact that we cared about each other. But the truth was, I was starting to see Sarah differently. Without the excitement of sneaking around, our conversations felt forced. She complained constantly about Marcus, about her sister, about her job, about everything. She expected me to solve all her problems and got angry when I suggested she handle things herself. 2 weeks ago, Marcus finally spoke to me. He cornered me in the parking lot after work. I thought he was going to hit me, but he just stood there looking at me for a long minute. Then he said Sarah had been lying to both of us. He told me he had found text messages on Sarah's phone going back 8 months. Not just messages to me, but to 2 other guys as well. Guys from her gym, a coworker at the dental office. She had been telling all of us that her marriage was over and that Marcus was neglecting her. He said he had also found evidence that she had been meeting up with these other guys while I thought I was the only one. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, things like that. Marcus said he had been trying to save their marriage for months. He knew something was wrong but thought it was just the stress of his new job. He had been planning to cut back on travel and spend more time at home. He had already talked to his boss about it. He said Sarah had been pushing him away every time he tried to reconnect with her. She'd pick fights when he tried to plan date nights. She'd claim she was tired when he wanted to be intimate. She'd say he was being needy when he asked how her day went. He said he found a pregnancy test in her purse 2 weeks ago. It was negative, but he realized she had been taking tests regularly for months. She had been hoping to get pregnant by someone else and pass the baby off as his. I stood there listening to all this and felt my stomach drop. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had risked everything for, was completely different from what I had imagined. Marcus said he was filing for divorce. He said Sarah had already moved out and was staying with some guy from her gym. He said she had been telling people that I had seduced her and ruined her marriage. He said he didn't forgive me for what I did, but he wanted me to know the truth about who I had been involved with. He said he figured I deserved to know that I hadn't been special to her, just convenient. Then he walked away. We haven't spoken since. I called Sarah that night and confronted her about what Marcus had told me. She denied everything at first, then got angry and said Marcus was lying to try to turn me against her. She said he was just trying to make himself look better. But when I pressed her for details, her story started falling apart. She couldn't explain the hotel receipts or why she had been taking pregnancy tests. She got defensive and said it was none of my business what she did before we got serious. I realized that even if Marcus was exaggerating some things, the basic facts were probably true. Sarah had been playing multiple guys against each other. I had been one of several affairs, not the great love story I had convinced myself we were having. I told Sarah I didn't want to see her anymore. She said I was making a mistake and that I'd regret it. She said she had given up everything for me and I was throwing it away over lies. But I was done. I had destroyed my work relationships and my reputation for someone who had been using me. I had felt guilty for months about betraying Marcus, and it turned out he had been getting betrayed a lot worse than I knew. Sarah kept calling and texting for a few days, then stopped. I heard she moved in with the gym guy. I haven't heard from her since. The situation at work is still awkward. Marcus and I don't talk, but he's not actively hostile anymore. Other people seem to have moved on to more recent office gossip. My boss hasn't said anything else about professionalism complaints. I keep thinking about how I got sucked into this whole mess. How I convinced myself that I was rescuing someone from a bad marriage when really I was just being used by someone who enjoyed the drama of cheating. I don't know if things will ever go back to normal at work. I don't know if Marcus will ever forgive me, and I don't blame him if he doesn't. I made my own choices and I have to live with the consequences. But at least now I know the truth about what really happened. Even if it makes me feel stupid for believing Sarah's lies for so long. Update 2: Things got worse before they got better. About a month after my last update, Sarah started spreading rumors around town. She was telling people that I had pursued her aggressively and that Marcus had been abusive to her during their marriage. I started getting dirty looks from people I barely knew. A few of Sarah's friends confronted me at the grocery store and at the gym. They said I should be ashamed of myself for taking advantage of someone in a vulnerable position. The worst part was when Sarah's sister called my work. She spoke to my boss and told him that I had been harassing her sister and that she was considering filing a restraining order. My boss called me into his office and said he needed to know the full story. I had to explain everything. The affair, the lies, the confrontation with Marcus. My boss listened without saying much, then told me to take a few days off while he figured out how to handle the situation. I thought I was going to get fired. I spent 3 days at home waiting for the call. But when my boss contacted me, he said he had spoken to Marcus and gotten his side of the story. He said as long as there were no more workplace disruptions, he wasn't going to take any action. Apparently Marcus had told him that Sarah was unstable and that I had been manipulated by her. He said he didn't want me to lose my job over her lies. I was surprised he stood up for me after everything that happened. When I got back to work, Marcus and I had our first real conversation in months. He said he didn't forgive me, but he recognized that Sarah had played both of us. He said he wanted to put the whole thing behind us and focus on work. He also warned me that Sarah wasn't done causing problems. He said she had been calling his parents and his friends, trying to get them to take her side in the divorce. She had been posting vague messages on social media about being betrayed by people she trusted. He was right. 2 weeks later, Sarah showed up at my apartment complex. She was drunk and screaming in the parking lot about how I had ruined her life. She was banging on my door and yelling that I owed her money because she had to find a new place to live. The neighbors called the police. When they arrived, Sarah tried to tell them that I had been stalking her. But she was clearly intoxicated and her story didn't make sense. They made her leave and suggested I document any future contact in case I needed to file a restraining order. I haven't seen Sarah since then, but I heard she was arrested for drunk driving a few weeks later. She lost her job at the dental office and had to move back in with her parents in another state. Marcus's divorce was finalized last month. He seems lighter now, like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders. We're not friends, but we can work together without tension. He's been dating someone new, a teacher he met through his church. She seems nice from what I've heard. I've been going to a support group for people who have been in toxic relationships. It's helped me understand how I got pulled into Sarah's manipulation. The counselor there said that people like Sarah are good at finding vulnerable targets and making them feel special. I realized that I was lonely and insecure when Sarah started paying attention to me. I wanted to believe that someone found me interesting and attractive. I ignored the red flags because I was getting something I needed from the relationship. The support group has helped me work on myself. I've started setting better boundaries with people. I've learned to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate me with guilt or flattery. I've also started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and casual dinners. It's nice to meet people who don't come with complicated histories or hidden agendas. My reputation around town has mostly recovered. People have moved on to other gossip. The few people who still believe Sarah's version of events aren't people I care about impressing anyway. I think the biggest thing I've learned is that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Sarah wasn't a victim trapped in a bad marriage. She was someone who created drama and chaos wherever she went. I was just the latest person to get caught up in her mess. I'm grateful that Marcus was mature enough to separate my mistakes from Sarah's manipulation. I know he had every right to make my life miserable, but he chose to move on instead. I respect him for that. I still feel guilty about the affair. I still wish I had handled things differently. But I'm not going to let one bad decision define the rest of my life. I'm focused on learning from what happened and being a better person going forward. Update 3. I wanted to give one final update on this situation since people have been asking for closure. Marcus and I have developed a decent working relationship. We're not best friends, but we can collaborate on projects without any awkwardness. He got promoted to regional manager last month and will be moving to our company's Dallas office in the fall. I'm genuinely happy for him. He's been with his girlfriend Emma for about 4 months now. I met her at the office Christmas party and she seems perfect for him. She's calm where Sarah was chaotic, supportive where Sarah was demanding. Marcus looks relaxed and happy in a way I never saw when he was married. The divorce settlement was finalized without any major issues. Sarah tried to claim Marcus had hidden assets and that she deserved alimony, but her lawyer advised her to take the standard settlement. She got half of their savings and Marcus kept the house. Sarah has been living with her parents in Ohio for the past 3 months. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she's been posting on social media about starting over and finding herself. She's been taking online courses and talking about maybe going back to school. I hope she's actually working on herself and not just looking for new people to manipulate. But that's not my problem anymore. I've been in a relationship with someone I met through the support group for about 2 months. Her name is Jennifer and she's a nurse at the local hospital. She was married to someone with similar issues to Sarah, someone who lied constantly and played mind games. Jennifer understands what it's like to question your own judgment after being involved with someone toxic. We take things slow and communicate openly about everything. It's the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. The support group helped me recognize patterns in my behavior that made me vulnerable to manipulation. I used to be a people pleaser who avoided conflict at all costs. I would make excuses for people's bad behavior because I didn't want to rock the boat. I've learned to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. I've learned to speak up when someone crosses my boundaries. I've learned that helping someone shouldn't require me to sacrifice my own well-being. I also learned that guilt is a powerful weapon when used by the right person. Sarah was an expert at making people feel responsible for her problems. She would twist situations to make herself the victim and everyone else the villain. My work life has completely stabilized. I got a good performance review last quarter and my boss has been giving me more responsibility. Some of my coworkers who were distant during the drama have started including me in social events again. I think people respect that I owned up to my mistakes instead of trying to blame everything on Sarah. I never badmouthed her publicly or tried to make excuses for my behavior. I just focused on doing my job and being professional. The whole experience taught me that actions have consequences, even when you don't intend to hurt anyone. I destroyed a marriage, damaged professional relationships, and hurt people who didn't deserve it. I can't undo any of that. But I can make sure I never put myself in a similar situation again. I can be honest about my mistakes and work to be better. I can treat future relationships with the respect they deserve. I'm moving to a new apartment next month. Jennifer and I aren't ready to live together yet, but I want a fresh start somewhere without memories of Sarah showing up drunk or crying in my hallway. Marcus stops by my desk sometimes to talk about work projects or upcoming changes to our department. Sometimes he mentions weekend plans with Emma or jokes about office politics. It's normal workplace interaction, which feels like a miracle considering where we started. I know he'll never fully trust me again, and I don't expect him to. But the fact that we can work together civilly shows that people can move past even serious betrayals if they're willing to be mature about it. I think that's the main thing I want people to take from this story. When you mess up badly, you have 2 choices. You can double down and blame everyone else, or you can own your mistakes and work to repair the damage. I chose the second option, and even though it was harder in the short term, it led to a much better outcome for everyone involved. Sarah chose the first option, and she ended up losing her marriage, her job, her home, and most of her friends. She's starting over in a different state with a reputation for being unstable and dishonest. I'm not saying I'm a hero or that I handled everything perfectly. I made terrible decisions that hurt people I cared about. But I learned from those decisions and I'm building a better life because of what I learned. That's all anyone can do when they screw up. Own it, learn from it, and do better next time.